Welcome to the Golden Seams podcast. I'm Gabe, and along with my co-host Michae, we're thrilled to have you join us on this transformative journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Our podcast is all about helping you uncover your authentic self, find your true calling, and create prosperity in alignment with your deepest values and aspirations.
We're going further into the theme of boundaries, a crucial aspect of living authentically and pursuing your true path. Exploring Melissa Urban's insightful book, The Book of Boundaries, Set the Limits That Will Set You Free. And we're talking about Chapter 2 now, how to use this book. When I first approached this, I thought, gosh, we need to know how to use the book, but I really like her setup and her layout. We're going to be talking today about setting boundaries based on the relationship and how that is affecting your relationship and you as part of that relationship. She's going to break it down into 8 different relationship categories for us throughout the book. Tell us exactly how to set the boundary. She's also going to go into giving us scripts to help us to know what to say, which is such a big difference from other boundaries books. Talk about setting boundaries, theories around the importance of setting boundaries, but she actually gives us a concrete strategy. We're going to be discussing the green, yellow, red method that Melissa has developed and what you gain by setting a boundary. What is at stake if you don't set a boundary? What are you going to lose? Also talk about the principle of minimum dose, maximum effect, and the importance of practicing and saying your boundaries. Melissa begins chapter 2 and she talks about how many experts categorize boundaries by the area of your life the boundary will support, such as physical, emotional, or financial. But what separates her book from all the others that are out there that I'm aware of is she has simplified this into relationship categories. And when you really come down to it, that's exactly what boundaries are about. They're about the value and the preservation of that relationship, the ones that are important to you. She says that there's 8 specific relationship categories in which you are most likely to need boundaries. All of the relationships you're likely to have in your life, parents, in-laws, friends, neighbors, bosses, romantic partners. She also talks about the relationship with yourself, supporting yourself, ensuring your own physical well-being and your mental health, that you're safe and that you're protected. She goes further to say that setting boundaries will teach you to stick up for you and become your own protector, caretaker, and advocate. The thing that I find really valuable about this is that if you're talking about setting a boundary about something that's physical, emotional, or financial, it somehow is talking about things instead of the relationship. She acknowledges that there's crossover. She gives this example of a woman whose husband bought a home gym, very expensive. He put it in their small home. So there was a lot more at stake here than he bought this home gym. It was taking up a large space in their home, that he'd spent a lot of their money on it. He didn't talk to her about it. He spent their money, but also it showed that he didn't value her input in the relationship. If you were to just look at it financially, look at it as now this is taking up our living room, you're missing all these other pieces. And at the bottom of this whole thing, the foundation of it is their relationship at stake. I really like how she approaches that.
It's incredible. It's easy to see how many ways we can make assumptions when we're not practicing healthy, clear boundaries and teaching others.
How you can create a strength in your relationship if you approach it based on the value of the relationship, also valuing yourself in the relationship.
Right.
It's mutual.
And it emphasizes the kindness, if possible, exercising the boundary with kindness for the sake of cultivating the relationship. Physical boundary or emotional boundary, if I think of it, like you said, in terms of things or not the person, it's easier to be more harsh or extreme with the approach, when I think more grace and tact might be effective.
When you're thinking about the person, how you're going to maintain the relationship going forward.
Exactly.
Melissa has a section in her book that says, how do you say that? She said, experts rarely talk about exactly how to set the boundary. I have read several boundary books. This was the first one that actually kind of gave me a playbook. She has scripts. Scripts are really helpful. They at least give you a jumping off point. She'll be giving scripts throughout the book. She talks about coaching her clients in the Whole30 community, the individuals who would reach out to her. She would give them scripts, things like try no thanks, I'm not drinking right now, or we love seeing you, but if you don't call before stopping by, we may not be able to visit, or just say, if I take that on, Project A won't be done on time. Do I have your permission to deliver Project A next week? Those are all great examples right out of the
Yeah.
chute about setting boundaries in different situations. It's preserving yourself and preserving the relationship long term. She talks about the origins of her green, yellow, and red boundary scripts. Gabe always calls this a blueprint, and I think that's the best way to put it.
Something as new as boundaries to me, it was really helpful to have her outline her system and how she was gauging the level of boundary or the action necessary to respond to it. Everything seems so foreign. This is my first time reading through the book. I know Michae has read it a couple times already, but I'm still developing these ideas in my mind, and this one was a big one for me because it helped me. In the previous chapter, creating the space was a big motivation to practice setting boundaries, but I feel like this outline in the section of the green, yellow, red really helps structure and create the visual chart in my mind, the key for the chart on the side of it, what part goes where, when. And I think having that all laid out in a calm space with myself makes me feel a lot more confident when it comes time to setting boundaries.
I really do appreciate when she shared that part in the previous chapter about you don't want to throw the consequence out there right away.
Right.
That's too much. That's in your face, if you will.
And that's not prioritizing the relationship. Right? That's a reaction again. And that's what
Definitely.
I'm trying to eradicate, because I know when I'm in a reactive state, I'm not feeling the peace I want and I'm capable of feeling.
As you know, we're doing boundaries in a very different way. We'd like to thank all of our listeners, subscribers, followers, and especially our wonderful Patreon members for your support, sharing this community and this path, quoting us, tagging us, and whatever kind acts you do with your friends, family, colleagues, and those who, well, just get it. Your gentle but powerful acts of support, no matter how small, tell us and the world this resonates. So we thank you, wholly and fully from our hearts, for being the catalyst wherever you are, because it only takes one step forward to begin to step into your magnificence. Now, a little shameless pitch here. I'm thrilled to announce that we're offering exclusive content on our Patreon, The Golden Seams. We want to take a moment to explain what we're doing to support and benefit you on your path. Our Golden Alchemist level members all receive a specially crafted 15 to 20 minute deep meditation focused on creating and maintaining clear, kind boundaries, our theme right now. This meditation, when practiced daily for 21 to 30 days, can help you naturally integrate healthy boundaries in your relationships, with yourself, and energetically, fully helping you incorporate positive boundaries into your life, paving the way for authentic living and personal growth.
This also includes a powerful 1-hour Boundaries Subliminal audio, which serves as the backdrop for the deep meditation, designed to help release difficulties in creating clear, kind boundaries, while simultaneously assisting you in establishing and maintaining them. They incorporate solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats for maximum effectiveness. Michae, guided by her higher senses, creates these transformative tools previously reserved for her private client.
We're going to continue on. Melissa talks about that scripts are there to help you to know what to say. Where she originated her green, yellow, red method is an experience she had going to a wedding. Her ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend at that wedding kept approaching her and trying to push her to drink. Melissa kept avoiding her. She said, "I'm not drinking tonight," all the different things. And she realized at that point, green is when you say, "No, thank you." Yellow is when you have to go past "no, thank you." And red is when you need to lay down a consequence with "no, thank you."
I think there's a part where she goes into a fuchsia level, jokingly as well, where she brings in the action.
Yes.
I like that. And that one I think is important. It gives me a list that I need to create of a bunch of options because there's so many different types of boundaries. And the green, yellow, red approach is really helpful for me. Learning about all the different kinds of boundaries and how they're crossed gives me a clear approach to create a list of options for the different types and the different situations that I might need. So I've been sitting with this a lot, mainly looking back on moments that I could have practiced and either wasn't able to or didn't know how. I did not realize that there are conditions to the nature of the boundaries in the past. Like I said, I've usually coming out pretty heavy with the volume, not with my voice, but the intensity of my words. maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and
Me
the
too.
pointedness of the energy, making it personal.
Exactly. I think that that's how we were taught, and I think that's how our
Yeah.
parents were taught. She explains that the red, yellow, green method is based on the need for different levels of threat to your relationship with that person, your mental health, or your safety. We require different levels of boundary response based on what those needs are and what's occurring. Just like you don't use a flamethrower to kill a mosquito, she says. Always
Oh,
out of visual.
thought that was the perfect analogy. That was my only weapon.
She says the threat at that point, when she was at that wedding, it wasn't so severe. Setting a gentle boundary and changing the subject felt appropriate. I have used that approach myself so many times where I try to pivot, change the subject. And if the person does keep coming back to it, I get away from them. What I learned here, I want to constantly look at what I gain from setting a meaningful boundary.
Right. And a lot of the times for me, the inner peace is enough. Remembering
Mm-hmm.
that I have the right to carry that peace and to cultivate it.
When she first discusses this and talks about how she realized that she was going to have to leave this wedding because this woman would not stop approaching her and even came to her with shots of alcohol and she was not drinking, she realized that if she didn't set the strongest boundary possible, she was afraid something irreparable was going to happen, that she was either going to blow up at this woman and start a fight or give in and have a drink. I thought this woman is so strong. And
I
she
would.
left to preserve her own peace, just like what you're saying, Gabe.
It takes so much discipline. I really admire the capacity to walk away from an instigation of that caliber. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
read the book, the the girlfriend of her ex-boyfriend is pretty
In her face,
fixated in her face and crossing not only boundaries but a lot of maybe moral
chiding.
lines. Yeah. It's really intense and her demeanor so admirable. Remember that she has autonomy, authority and sovereignty enough to maintain herself.
She was also reading the room. She knew that this woman was starting to have more to drink. She
Yeah.
was becoming more bolden in what she was saying. Her friends were there, and she was feeling more confident to be able to keep throwing those thorns out. Isn't that interesting? When you're sober, I don't know if you've ever been the designated driver, but I have. And when I'm watching everybody and they're getting a bit snockered and
Yeah.
silly, it's fine. You definitely see people starting to cross lines when alcohol's involved, that's for sure. Melissa goes
It's
on and she says green, yellow, and red represent the level of threat that stems from the boundary crossing you're facing. If someone continues this behavior, is your mental health going to suffer? Are your health commitments at risk? Is it putting you in the way of physical or emotional harm? The threat could also be to your relationship. If that threat is minimal at this point, their behavior is not okay, but it's the first time it's happened or it's not hugely harmful, you're still in green territory, and the language you use to establish or reinforce the boundary should acknowledge that. But if the threat to your relationship is imminent, as in, if you mention my weight one more time, I'm walking out the door, you're in the red, and your boundary language and the consequences should reflect that too.
So Melissa goes on to describe a green boundary cross, low risk and the gentlest language. Assumes the other person wasn't aware that they were overstepping and wants to respect your limit. Your boundary language is clear, generous, and very kind. It leaves any potential consequences unsaid in the spirit of good faith. Yellow, elevated risk, and firmer language. Used as a follow-up if your green boundary isn't respected or if historical interactions with this person indicate that the threat is higher. Your boundary language is just as clear but more firm. Yellow may also include an intended consequence if appropriate. And red is a severe risk and your most direct language. At this point, your health, safety, and or the relationship are in jeopardy, and your language must reflect the severity of the situation. It's still kind, but this is their last reminder, and makes it clear that you are prepared to hold your limits. State the consequence plainly here, and be ready to enforce it.
That's her strategy and what she learned through that experience. I go back to reflecting on what is it you gain by setting the boundary. For me, that really helps set the stage for giving me the courage to say it,
Yeah.
to do it, to enforce it in a clear, kind way, and always remembering my true goal is to maintain and enhance the relationship. But then I reflect on that, like I always do, and I think, what is at stake if you don't set the boundary? Pushing that even further in my mind, what am I going to lose? So you find myself asking, what are you going to lose here? Another way of how I put it in my head is, if the person keeps going too far, how many punches are you willing to take before you knock down or there's nothing left of you?
Hmm.
I had a tendency previously to let things go entirely too far without speaking up. When I finally did, I was very reactionary, I was defensive, and I was angry, determined to make that person see this is your fault.
Yes, it would become a competitive with a win or lose. And it wasn't respect based, because you can't win or lose with respect, right? It's got to be mutual understanding, I think.
Well, I was using the mind reading strategy. I was
Me
using
too.
the strategy of, this is really obvious. Why do you not realize this is so disrespectful to me? This is common sense, being very assumptive in that. The truth is that if I had set boundaries in the beginning, right in the beginning, it wouldn't have gotten to a red. I
I
wouldn't have let it. I learned to not let it do that.
I only knew the color red. It's almost like green and yellow are being introduced to my vision. And this is the level of dysregulation I lived with for a very long time made it very hard to identify the more subtle limits that I have. Yeah, that breath work with Deanna was really helpful in centering and becoming present. And I feel like that's when the yellow and green started showing up more. I was very good at recognizing the red. Even then, I would shut down and withdraw because I think that for me goes immediate to fight or flight response. And that's a hard place to set a boundary from because, again, it's a competition of win or lose. And that's not about preserving the relationship or developing understanding for myself or for others. It becomes about reflex and reaction. And there's no power in that.
The underlying principle goes back to, do I feel safe? Do I feel valued? And then you go from there.
That's so good. That's such a helpful point. I think I have to defer to, like you said, what am I gaining from this boundary? I think any sense of safety and peace is enough. I'm still regulating my system and I'm still creating new thought patterns and neural pathways. So I don't always recognize the reason coherently or intellectually. But the more I trust my gut and my heart when they have those hits, I feel like that's where the stoplight should be. My heart flashes red or yellow. If I'm quiet and with myself, I can catch it. Usually when I'm not regulated, I'm in my mind running on a hamster wheel.
One of the things that makes it so much easier is that mental work, the deep meditation that has the subliminal audio backing it, and also the subliminal audio. When you incorporate those in the background in your practice, even if you're listening to the deep meditation while you're washing dishes or getting ready, whatever it is, obviously not driving or something like that. What I learned years ago when I was prepping for presentations, different things I had to do, negotiations, I would always prep my mind every morning with recordings of what I needed to present. That's really what drove this into me, and it's part of the reason why I know how to do this so well, because I did it for myself for years and years and years, and it was very effective. I had solutions that I could jump to on cue intuitively without issue. It was a reflex for me. That's what those do to help. They make it more intuitive, they make it more streamlined. As we cover more of these details in the book, just know that's there for you. It's available for you on the Patreon.
My experience with listening to the audios and coloring the mandala actually outlined how boundary setting is a creative tool. Without boundaries, I don't have the ability to create the life that I want if I'm stuck. And that process of sitting down and feeling the colors that I wanted to place when I wanted to place while I listened to the audio was really anchoring, understanding how important boundaries are in the path of creating the life that I want. Without the space that creates, I'm not able to choose, and I'm constantly stuck in the state of when I only see the red light, boundary crossings. The subtleties and awareness that the boundary audios and the mandala are bringing me are really anchoring in a new baseline. I definitely encourage you all to try.
It takes me back to what Maria shared with us about having your mind mentally prepped.
Right.
to create the space so that things are easier for you. Without that regular prep and practice, it's more challenging, way more challenging. Melissa talks about minimum dose, maximum effect.
The best boundary uses the minimum dose for maximum effect. This is a physics principle first credited to Greek scientist and mathematician Archimedes, but it has been popularized in the modern fitness industry. It asks the question, what is the smallest action you can take to produce the desired effect? The principle allows you to leverage your efforts to get the most bang for your buck and prevents you from the negative consequences of thinking more is always better.
She says, when it comes to boundaries, how softly can you tread while still effectively establishing your limit? That is so good.
It absolutely affirms the incredible feeling that is knowing there is minimal effort required if I stay present. If I catch the greens and I catch the yellows,
yes,
the energy demand for setting boundaries is infinitely smaller, and my experience of my day-to-day is significantly different.
Yes.
I'm not going through these peaks and valleys of responses.
And fear and anxiety.
Yeah, it's a lot more calm comfort. Life always happens, but it is significant change in the baseline experience.
She says, if you find that repeating your grain boundaries just isn't working and the offending behavior continues to escalate, what's a kinder response? Say nothing and ignoring the other person for a while, or speaking a yellow or red level boundary clearly and setting the stern but necessary limit that could save the relationship?
So when I was reading this, in that part where she says, what is the smallest action you can take to produce the desired effect? I was really left with myself realizing that if I'm not honest and aware of what my needs are, it becomes hard to determine what the green, yellow, and reds are and look like. And without that being the baseline of the practice, it's hard for me to create the game plan and the blueprint she's laying out.
That's just the beginning of our journey into boundaries and self-discovery. If you're ready to transform your life, create prosperity aligned with your authentic self, and master the art of setting clear, kind boundaries, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Upcoming with this theme, we're diving deep into breathwork with Deanna, exploring energetic boundaries with Maria, a Brazilian shaman, and unveiling exclusive content that will revolutionize your approach to personal growth.
Thank you for joining us on the Golden Seams podcast. We're truly grateful for your presence and participation in this journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Your path to authenticity and prosperity is unique, and we're honored to be a part of it. If you found value in today's episode, we invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit.
If you want to experience the full power of the Golden Seams, head over to our Patreon now, where you'll access our transformative deep meditation, powerful subliminal audio, and custom mandala, all designed to help you manifest the life you truly desire. So don't wait to start living authentically and remember who you truly are.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your authentic light. This is Gabe and Michae signing off from the Golden Seams. May your path be golden, and may you find the strength to mend and beautify the broken parts of your life, just like the art of kintsugi.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.